This is the 14th and the last part video, titled, He Finds a Notebook of Experience and Can Experience Anything He Writes. Please do watch all the previous parts to enjoy this video. I would like to thank everyone who has been commenting and showing their support along the series. Thank you everyone. Few weeks later, at Unsongjeong, Soo-hee Nuna welcomes Jong-suk. Jong-suk was delighted to see her. They were at the restaurant. She said, "No one has arrived yet. He came too early." Jong-suk smiled and said when he heard about her arrival in Korea, he came in a hurry to see her. He asked, "How many days is she going to stay?" Soo-hee Nuna smiled and replied, "She hasn't decided yet." Jong-suk gave her a box and said it was a gift for her. He brought it from countryside. Nuna opened it and saw some pills. She asked what was it. Jong-suk replied, those were the medicine pills he made. He called them yin pills. He added, these are made from rare herb called bikalcho, which is very good for women's body. Nuna was shy as she thanked him. Jong-suk saw many restaurant workers who were taking vegetables. Jong-suk asked with curiosity, "Are you preparing to make kimchi?" Nuna replied, when she arrived in Korea, she went straight to Gongwon-do to find some high-quality cabbages and radishes. And then she asked her grandpa to prepare kimchi for tonight's dinner. Jong-suk laughed and said, "I guess you really like kimchi as she has brought so many cabbages and radishes for dinner." Nuna said, "Do you want to take a bite?" She picked up a clean cabbage and gave it to Jong-suk. Jong-suk gladly ate it. He said it was sweet. Soo-hee Nuna smiled and said, "Well, that means that the yield this year really went well." Jong-suk quickly added, since they already have this much cabbage, it would be great to cook some miso soup and boiled cabbages. Nuna agreed and asked, "Do you want to try?" After a while, Jong-suk was preparing his miso soup. He took a pot full of soybean paste and poured it in the big pot. Nuna asked, why is he adding soybean paste in it? Jong-suk replied, he is familiar with the kind of food that elders like, so he added it to bring some spice to the dish. Nuna understood his motive. The dish was served on the table. The elders saw the new dish. One of them asked, what was it? Jong-suk said, there were a lot of cabbages, so he made miso soup, along with some boiled cabbages. Other elder was surprised by the quantity of the food. He exclaimed and asked, did he make all the food by himself? He took the soup and tasted it. He said, he can feel some oil in it. Jong-suk said, it is a bit oily, so he thought to add some spice into it. The elders laughed and said, thank you for the food, in unison. They enjoyed their meal. Jong-suk and Nuna were happy for the time. After their meal, the elder gave an entry pass to Jong-suk. It was for the Chinese relics exhibition. Jong-suk said, so they are finally exhibiting the forbidden relics. The elder said, those are the precious items that he had researched and gathered from countries carefully. So, he had to make some fake ones too. Another elder asked, why make fake items? On this question, the elder replied, relics are high-class national and cultural treasures. Does he think it's okay to display these items on their own? But the previous elder frowned and said, still, he can't believe how people from faraway countries have to visit to the museums and see the fake items. The elder said, even if it's fake, it's made to look real, so there's no difference from the genuine product. Unless the expert touches and examines it, they are considered original. He asked to the same elder, Soo-dam, didn't you almost got scammed earlier too? Soo-dam said awkwardly, that happened a long time ago. He added, but recently he heard some strange stories from his junior. The elder suddenly said he also wanted to ask about the same situation. Another elder interrupted and said he heard that some of the relics brought from China are fake. The elder replied he heard that some relics went missing. They realized both of them have only half knowledge about the situation. Jong-suk had listened to everyone. He was in thought as to how many relics are fake or went missing. He thought for a second and asked, did someone stole the relics during the transportation? The elder replied, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is responsible for transportation, so they must have realized it during day-to-day handlings. The other elder added, since the Ministry of Culture and Tourism is in charge of the relics appraisal, if the relics they have assessed are turned out to be fake, it will be a matter of concern for the Ministry of Culture and Tourism. Soo-dam frowned and said, so that means both of them could be the problem. Jong-suk looked at the elder and asked, can he meet the experts in the Ministry of Culture and Tourism who are in charge of the appraisal? The elder replied, the opening date of the exhibition is Saturday. So, in that event, all the officials from Ministry of Culture and Tourism and also from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will gather. Jong-suk put down his cup and immediately said, all right, then let's find the culprit on that day. On Saturday, at the National Museum, many foreigners and dignitaries from various places had gathered. The museum was crowded with people. The elder said, all the people involved are participating today. He looked at Jong-suk and asked, can he find the culprit among all these people? Jong-suk looked at the crowd and said, he needs to. Suddenly, a man comes over to the elder and greets him saying, "Vice Minister." He gave the elder a polite handshake and said, "Thank you for gracing us with your presence when you are always busy." The man was Professor Oh Jong-muong from S University and head of the archaeology department. The elder smiled and said, of course, he had to come. At the same time, a man recognized Jong-suk and asked him respectfully, "Are you Lee Jong-suk?" Jong-suk turned to address him. The man introduced himself. He said, he is Kang Seung-yoon, the director of this museum. He added, the vice minister had requested him to give a special guide for Jong-suk and let him ask for anything he is curious about. He was that guide for him. Jong-suk smiled and shook his hand. He said he will be in his care. Jong-suk looked over and suddenly asked, "Who are those people standing over there?" Mr. Yoon replied, "They are all interns in the museum. They are all graduate students majoring in archaeology." Jong-suk immediately asked, "What kind of work do they do here?" Mr. Yoon replied, "They help the professors when they restore and appraise the relics." Jong-suk realized something. He went to the interns and said, "Hello." They looked at the source of the voice. One of the intern was suddenly surprised. She suddenly said, "You are Lee Jong-suk, right?" Jong-suk smiled and asked, "You know me?" She immediately said, "Of course, I do. You are that Oriental medicine doctor." The boy intern smiled and asked, "Are you the boyfriend of Jin Sumi?" Jong-suk smiled awkwardly and replied, "Yes, he is Lee Jong-suk, also known as Jin Sumi's boyfriend." The two interns were really surprised to see him. Jong-suk said, "You all look tired. I guess you have been working a lot today." The boy frowned and said, "That's the life of a graduate student." The girl suddenly added in a low voice, "It was a mistake in the first place to take an unpopular department like archaeology as a career path." She added, when she went to archaeology, she thought she would be like Lara Croft from the Tomb Raider or something like that. Suddenly, the boy added, "For me, it's Drake from Uncharted." The girl didn't even know what it was. Jong-suk laughed and said, "There are quite a few people who decide their career path after watching movies and games." The boy laughed and said, "That's true. Even our professor studied archaeology after watching Indiana Jones." The girl asked, "Mr. Jong-suk, did you also decide to become an Oriental medicine doctor after seeing Hyo-jun?" Jong-suk smiled and replied, "For me, it was after reading a lot of books." He looked at the other intern and said, "Since you are graduate students, it must be quite hard pleasing professors." The intern didn't reply. Jong-suk was surprised. The boy nodded and said, "Don't even talk about it. He has to do everything the professor tells him to do." The girl added, "They can't help it, as the supervisors review their thesis and recommends them when they look for jobs." Jong-suk smiled and said he too had a hard time presenting his thesis not too long ago. The boy asked knowledgeably, "Was it master's thesis?" Jong-suk replied, "Doctorate's thesis." Both of them were surprised by his sudden answer. The girl said with a shocked tone, "You are really amazing. You are already submitting for doctorate at such young age." Jong-suk added, "The topic of his paper is poor therapy." He asked, should he give them a fatigue recovery massage. The girl immediately raised her hand and said, "Me first." Jong-suk made her stand straight and used his hands to massage her shoulders. Just when Jong-suk put on some pressure, the girl felt her fatigue wearing off. She said, "It feels good." Jong-suk said, "Stroke massage is really good for beauty treatment too." The girl was astonished. She asked, "Did he give this massage to actress Jin Sumi too?" Jong-suk said, "Of course." Jong-suk suddenly asked the boy in turn, "Where is the bathroom?" The boy gave the direction. Jong-suk told to the girl, when he is finished with his massage, she should run straight to the bathroom. The girl didn't understand. Suddenly, Jong-suk gave a slight push to her stomach. He said, "There's nothing better than emptying your bowels to discharge all the fatigue accumulated in your body." The girl couldn't bear the pressure. Jong-suk gave her some space. There was painful expression on the girl's face. She felt it. She immediately ran towards the direction of the bathroom. The boy was surprised by the sudden sequence. He said he has a constipation too. Jong-suk stood behind him and used the same technique. The man couldn't even fake it and ran towards the bathroom. Jong-suk turned towards the third intern. She was little reserved. Jong-suk said, "Now it's your turn." The girl was little intimidated and said she is okay without the massage. Jong-suk suddenly grabbed her wrist and said, "Let me check your pulse then." The girl was taken by surprise. She couldn't resist. Jong-suk examined her pulse and asked, "Your pulse is unstable. Do you have any stress?" The girl was surprised and asked, "Can you know something like that just by feeling my pulse?" Jong-suk replied, "Of course he can. Just by feeling one's pulse, one can tell if the person is telling the truth or lying." He suddenly added, "Looks like you are worried about the cultural relics that will be displayed today." The girl was shocked. Suddenly, Jong-suk pulled her and said, "There are fake items mixed in with the relics, right?" The girl couldn't even move. She was shocked and hesitant. She was looking panicked. She asked, "What does he mean? How is that possible?" Zhang had not freed her hand. He said, "Look at this. If you lie, your pulse starts beating faster." The girl suddenly jerked off her hand to be freed. She was in panic. Zhang Suk calmed her down and asked, "Does anyone other than her knows about it?" The girl was still hesitant. She said she doesn't know what he was talking about. The girl couldn't look into his eyes. She was looking over the other side. Zhang Suk looked in the direction and saw the man. He immediately realized it. He said, "That man is the advisor, right?" The girl suddenly felt like she has been caught. Zhang Suk went to the elder and said he has found the culprit. The elders were in surprise and couldn't hide it. Zhang Suk pointed at the man and said, "It looks like the professor manipulated the authenticity of results by using the graduate students." The elder recognized the man. It was Professor Oh Jong-myung. The elders went to investigate. They called for the professor and asked to talk. The professor agreed. The elder introduced him with Zhang Suk. The professor said he had seen him on TV. Zhang Suk smirked and said he also thinks he has seen him on TV. The professor didn't know what he meant by that. The elder asked to the professor, "Do you mind if Mr. Lee Zhang Suk to check your pulse?" The professor was puzzled by the sudden question. He laughed and said, "Yes, please take a look. I will leave myself in your care." Little did he know what was going to happen. He gave his hand to Zhang Suk. Zhang Suk took his hand and checked his pulse. His pulse was stable, which meant he was innocent or has no conscience. The professor smirked and asked, "How is it?" Zhang Suk said, "Let me ask you a question." Zhang Suk suddenly asked, "Did you make fake artifacts and exchange them with genuine items?" The professor was puzzled. He immediately said, "No, what are you talking about?" Zhang Suk felt his pulse pacing. The professor shouted and said, "Vice Minister, what is this person talking about?" The elder was calm. He just asked simple question, "Where are the genuine products?" The professor was in panic and replied, "They are cultural property, so of course they are here." He added, "What are you talking about, Vice Minister?" Zhang Suk immediately said, "He is lying." The professor freed his hand and yelled at Zhang Suk, "Who are you to tell him that I'm lying? You don't even know who I am." Zhang Suk was calm as ever. He looked around and saw the director of the museum was using his phone for something. Zhang Suk ran towards him and grabbed his phone without him even realizing it. The director asked, "What is he doing?" Zhang Suk saw the screen. He was typing a message. It said, "Professor Oh Jong-myung got caught. The people from Ministry of Culture and Tourism and Ministry of Foreign Affairs came." The elder took the phone. He saw the message. He immediately asked Director Kang Seung-yoon, "What is the meaning for this message?" The director couldn't even make an answer. Zhang Suk whispered to the elder that it will be better to keep the phone here for the investigation. The elder agreed. The security member came to the elder and said, "Vice Minister, can I ask you to explain what's going on here?" The Vice Minister elder immediately replied, "There has been an incident in which the cultural relics are stolen by exchanging them with the fake ones." The other elder added, "Unfortunately, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Culture and Tourism have secured the evidence that the genuine items have appeared in black markets." The elder added, "That's the reason why everyone is gathered here to find the culprit." Zhang Suk asked, "Can you track the phone number?" He tried to text. The elder replied, "He will look into it." Suddenly, the crowd of people started to murmur among them. They knew how much the government had to pay for those relics to be bought back. They were blaming them. In sudden panic, the professor yelled and said, "You don't have the right to do this, I'll call a lawyer." He was interrupted by the elder. The elder told him to shut up. He was furious. He said, "Shame on you as a scholar who studies culture and history." After a while, a number of police cars were outside of the museum. They took the director and the professor with them. A lady officer came to the elder and said, "She is Young Yu Min, an investigator from Intelligence Department. She specializes in cultural artifacts. She is sure to investigate the theft and smuggling of the cultural properties. She will definitely find the criminals involved and those who led the crime. They will definitely be punished accordingly." She added, "She was one of the students from Vice Minister's class." The elder didn't remember her. He said he didn't know there would be a detective among his students. The lady officer replied, "The National Police Agency offered a special department for cultural property." She added, "If he is curious about the process of the investigation, he can contact them anytime." The elder said he will then leave it in their capable hands. The police left with all their cars. Zhang Suk said he didn't expect the police to arrive so fast in this situation. The elder replied, "It's because the cultural artifact master is arrested and going to be investigated." He added, "They just need to believe in them to do their jobs." The other elder said, "It is the job of Ministry of Foreign Affairs to recover the cultural assets sold abroad." With a little laugh, the elder said, "The atmosphere was chaotic today. Should they go to Yongsan and grab some drinks?" The other elder agreed, and with a long relief, he said, "Let's do that." The next day, there was a breaking news on TV. The news said some of the cultural artifacts recovered from China were swapped into fake items. The genuine items were sold overseas. Before entering into Korea, the criminals were arrested by the Ministry of Culture and Tourism and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in a joint investigation with the prosecution. They showed the names and faces of the culprits. Jong-suk saw Sumi walking down by the stairs. She had woken up. Jong-suk said, shouldn't she take some more sleep? It must be hard for her to adjust to the time difference. Sumi smiled and replied she was fine after the massage he gave her. Jong-suk told her to come back for breakfast after she got washed up. Sumi smiled and went towards the bathroom. Jong-suk had prepared an exquisite breakfast for her. Sumi was more impressed and said, it looks good. Jong-suk said he doesn't know how it would taste since he made it with her diet food. Sumi takes a bite. She immediately said in a full mouth, it's so good. How can you make this from diet food? Jong-suk smiled and said, it's a relief that you liked it. Sumi cleaned her plate and said in a teasing manner, baby, let's sell this. If they sell this in States, they will be rich. Jong-suk laughed and asked, is the money they earn right now was not enough? Sumi shrugged and said, that's not it. Jong-suk immediately said, let's eat quickly and head to the action school for training. Sumi said cutely, no, I don't want to be apart from you. It hasn't been too long since I came back to Korea. She added, can't you just train me? Is there even anyone who's better than you? Jong-suk said with a lovely smile, you better know that the real martial arts are different than they show in movies. She quickly added, don't be like that. Then, let's just film a movie together. She added, their recent work is still in mess because they can't find a male lead actor as the training is too hard. Jong-suk replied, how can he even act? Sumi said, he already has a lot of shooting experience in front of the camera and a few acting experiences too. Jong-suk said, but that was just as an action actor. Sumi just held her hand and said, can he just read the script first? She added romantically, there's even a love scene in the script. Jong-suk was starstruck. Sumi teased, does he want her to film a love scene with another actor? Jong-suk couldn't answer. He quickly went to his room and locked the door. He pulled the hidden drawer. There was the magical, golden-covered experience book. He took it in his hand and said, it's been a long time. Jong-suk opened the book and put his pen on the empty page. He just thought of single goal. He wanted to become an actor. The book glowed, and words appeared on the empty page. Do you want to gain acting experience? Jong-suk spent 3,000 points for the acting experience. Suddenly, the book glowed once again with the glowing words, gaining acting experience and expressing skills. In the dream that the experience book showed him, he was in the ancient Athens. In the dream, he was a poet who wrote his own scripts and acted on his own. The poet was able to experience many people's lives with the help of the experience book. Based on the experience he gained, the poet was able to understand and express various human psychologies. The poet gained fame by defeating his senior performers in Dionysus' tragedy acting contest. The name of the poet was Sophocles. In the office, the director was in shock as the manager had told him that Jin-sumi wanted her boyfriend to play the male lead in the movie. But the manager said, it's not like that. He said she is not asking them to cast him, but let him audition for the role. The director was furious. He said, that's the same thing. He added, is the movie joke? He couldn't control his disappointment. He said, who does Jin-sumi think she is? Does she think she can do whatever she wants just because she is a world star? He added it angrily, in the first place, they're having trouble casting the male lead because her fee is too expensive. The manager gave an awkward smile and said, well, you are the one who insisted that this role should be done by Jin-sumi. The director frowned and said, that because they are a new company and they need a star with a valuable name like hers. The manager said, still, he heard Jong-suk is good with action roles. The director contradicted him and said, then, he should just be a stunt actor, not take the lead role. Suddenly, the female assistant told them that actress Jin-sumi is here. The manager told her to let them in. Sumi and Jong-suk came in. Looking at Sumi, the director praised her and said, it seems like our Sumi is getting prettier every day. Sumi just gave a light smile and gave the praise back. Sumi immediately introduced Jong-suk. Jong-suk introduced himself as well. The director smiled and said he has heard a lot about him. After their pleasantries, the director said he is sure that they have a lot to do. So let's just get to the point. Sumi immediately said, all right. They'll just jump to the scene he wants them to do. The director gave the script to her and said, scene 62. There's a scene where the male protagonist dies. Can you please act that out? Sumi looked for the scene 62. The manager came with an extra script to give it to Jong-suk. He said, they must have only one script. He can take this one. But Jong-suk suddenly said he have memorized all the lines. Both the director and the manager were shocked. The director asked with a nervous expression, "Are you telling me that you have memorized the script, which was more than 100 pages?" The manager said, "You must have read it many times." Jong-suk smiled and said, "I don't really forget what I read once." The director didn't want to accept it. He just thought, what kind of bluff was that? He added, "Just wait and see what I will do if he gets even a line wrong." The director tells them to take their position. He starts to narrate the scene. Scene 62. Gu-song and Yoon-kung are being chased and breathing heavily. Gu-song runs while holding Yoon-kung's hand with his one hand while trying to stop his bleeding stomach with the other. Jong-suk was performing perfectly as the director narrated the scene. Just then, the police siren rang. Jong-suk and Sumi were acting with all their skills. The police announced, "You are surrounded. Let go of your weapons and surrender." Gu-song was in deep pain. His voice was hoarse. He told Yoon-kung to start the engine on the boat. Yoon-kung was not letting him go. She asked, "What are you trying to do?" Gu-song looked at Yoon-kung with lonely expression and said, "I will buy you some time. You go alone." Yoon-kung couldn't control her tears. She was crying as she said, "I don't want to." Gu-song couldn't wait any longer. He yelled to listen to him as the police were making their way to them. Yoon-kung was scared, but Jong-suk had a painful smile on his face. He said, "I told you before. I'll do everything to keep you alive." The director and the manager could feel it. The scene was being projected in their eyes automatically. Sumi had tears in her eyes as she called his name. Jong-suk was acting like he was in his last breath. His voice had become low. He said, "Don't cry. I have lived a life that I won't regret, even if I have to die now." His eyes shutting slowly. The director was amazed. He couldn't believe it. Was this the amateur acting skills Jong-suk had? Jong-suk was not finished yet. He said, "Rather, I thought I would no longer suffer or be sad if I am dead." His hand had an illusionary blood. He had that dying smile on his face. The director could picture it. He saw the blood too, but there was nothing. It was all the magic of Jong-suk's acting. He was bending down. The director looked in the script. What he was doing was trying to undo the rope tied to the dock. Gu-song gave a hard kick to the boat. He shouted, "But then I met you." Yoon-kung was crying as the boat was leaving the dock. Gu-song continued, "And I knew you are only reason why I lived persistently this far without dying." Gu-song had a satisfactory smile, a drop of tear falling from his right eye. He said, "I have lived to meet you." In the office, the scene was over. Jong-suk was standing far from Sumi, as the director and the manager just stood there silently. Suddenly, the director started clapping. The manager couldn't hold back his tears. He was literally crying. Jong-suk, who was out of his character, asked, Is it all right?" The director was in surprise. He quickly replied, "That was really amazing." He added, "He wrote the script, but he never knew it could be acted like that." Jong-suk took that as a compliment. The manager controlled his tears and said, "Mr. Jong-suk is a genius actor." Jong-suk said awkwardly, "You flatter me too much." Sumi was really impressed too. She said she was surprised too. As an actress who has studied acting her whole life, she is jealous of his skills. She asked, "How is he so good at acting pain?" Jong-suk replied, "Maybe because he sees patients all the time." The director added to it. He said he really looked like he was shot. He teased, "Are you sure you have not been shot for real?" Jong-suk awkwardly remembered the bullet he took on his forehead. The director took his hand and said, "I hope you will be the male lead of our work." He announced, "This movie will be best melodrama noir movie ever after." A few weeks later, the news about the announcement of the bloody melodrama movie Red Tide, starring Jin Sumi and her boyfriend Lee Jong-suk, was breaking the internet. The director was happy by the reactions of all the netizens and the noise. Suddenly the door slammed and the employee screamed for the director. The director was startled by his sudden appearance. The man asked, "Just now, do you know who called me?" The director didn't know. The man replied, "It was Lee Ji-sun." The director was in shock. The employee added, "Yes, it was the actress, Lee Ji-sun. She requested him to send her the script." The director was in confusion. He thought about it and said, "Is there a role that Lee Ji-sun wants to play in their movie?" He questioned, "She usually doesn't take the role unless she is the female lead." Suddenly the employee said she is fine with a supporting role or a minor character. The director couldn't believe it. Suddenly another female employee came in. She said, "They have an international call." She added, "Actor Kim Bin has requested him to send him the script, saying that he can appear in the movie as a friend." Director knew who Kim Bin was. The employee asked what should they do. The director immediately said, "What do they mean?" Of course, he'll rewrite the script with Kim Bin and Lee Ji-sun in it. After a few days, a lot of reporters and media personals were gathered before a room. There was the Red Tide script reading session for all the actors from the movie. Jin Sumi, Lee Ji-sun, Kim Bin, and all the rest of the VIP members were gathered in one room. The director and the manager couldn't believe it. The crowd was a lot more than they had expected. The manager said it was all thanks to Lee Jong-suk. The director awkwardly said it is also thanks to Jin Sumi, who brought Lee Jong-suk and him for casting Jin Sumi. The manager praised the director awkwardly. The manager suddenly added, the actors are all top stars and also he has received an ample investment. So, now he just need to make a good movie. The director said he suddenly felt the pressure. Kim Bin, who was looking at Jong-suk, sitting quietly said he doesn't have to feel pressured just because it's his first lead role. Jong-suk felt at ease. Kim Bin added, as you know from your film experiences, the scenes can be filmed several times unlike plays. Looking at Jong-suk's focus, he added, the movie is usually made by filming several times for one particular scene until the director approves of it. They will edit it and choose the best scene later on. Jong-suk seemed as he was not aware of it. Kim Bin smiled and said, let's think lightly of our lines and try to match each other's vibe and see how it goes on today's reading. Jong-suk smiled in agreement. Jin Sumi and Lee Ji-sun were sitting side by side. Suddenly, Lee Ji-sun started the conversation. She said she didn't know Sumi would become this popular. Sumi smiled and said if it weren't for Jeong Bijin, where she worked with her, she wouldn't be here today. Lee Ji-sun gave a friendly smile and said, let's do well for this movie too. She raised her hand. Sumi smiled back and shook her hand saying, of course. When everyone became silent, the director said they will start the reading. Everyone involved in the movie were sitting by the round table. Jong-suk started reading with his first dialogue from the script. When the water came in, I thought it was time to row, so I rowed with all I had. But, it turns out, all those waters were oceans of blood. Jong-suk gave an evil laugh just like his character from the movie. Looking at Jong-suk, Kim Bin was stunned. He couldn't believe Jong-suk was this good at this. He was so natural. He instinctively looked at Ji-sun, but she was better at hiding her expression. He looked at Jong-suk but noticed his script book was closed. He was startled. The director noticed it and asked, is something wrong? Kim Bin just apologized for the disturbance. The media reporters who were present noticed the confidence of Jong-suk and the uneasiness of Kim Bin. They even enjoyed watching him sweat. The news of the reading session was also trending on the internet. It said, the movie starring Lee Jong-suk and Jin Sumi, Red Tide. Real couple chemistry, explosive chemistry. The news even made a conspiracy for Jong-suk being a better actor than Kim Bin. There was another article which said Chef Hyo In-guk and idol chef Saffron Sunny to be cooking at the set of Red Tide. Hyo In-guk even said Lee Jong-suk can act as good as he can cook. The news of their shooting and other things were always on trend in media. After a few months, it was finally time for the VIP premiere for the movie Red Tide. At the SV Theater, Yoon-ji was looking around. She suddenly saw two figures passing by. It was Yang-woo and the president's daughter, Young-ji. Yang-woo was surprised to see Yoon-ji, but she didn't recognize him at first glance. Yang-woo immediately made her recall him from her school memories. Yoon-ji suddenly remembered him. She said, of course she remembered him, but as he has become much cooler, she almost didn't recognize him. She was delighted to see him. Young-ji asked if she is friend from school. Yang-woo said, yes. Yoon-ji introduced herself as a reporter. Young-ji also introduced herself as a social worker. Yoon-ji whispered and asked Yang-woo, is she your girlfriend? Yang-woo was embarrassed and said, they are just close friends. Young-ji gave a friendly smile. Yang-woo asked, has she met Jong-suk? Yoon-ji replied, not yet. She added, he must be busy with greeting people. She said she thinks they can meet him at the after party. She asked, is he attending? Yang-woo said, yes, they will meet there. Yoon-ji took her leave. Young-ji said, if it's a VIP after party, there will be a lot of celebrities. Yang-woo said, maybe. Young-ji immediately became delighted and grabbed onto Yang-woo's arm and said, wow, I will get to meet celebrities thanks to you, Yang-woo. Yang-woo was blushing as his crush was almost clinging onto him. Yang-woo said, you also know a lot of politicians though. Young-ji was holding onto him and replied, politicians and actors are not the same. The movie started. The VIP members and audience gathered were enjoying it. As the port scene came, everyone was immersed in the movie. They could feel all Jong-suk's fight scenes. They couldn't leave their seat. There was the scene where Jong-suk kisses Sumi. Our Nuna had to bear the pain. At last, Gu-song, played by Jong-suk, died saving his lover. It was really a heartbreaking scene. Yoon-ji couldn't hold back her tears. The movie ended with it. The hall was filled with applaud and claps as the team got on stage to thank them. They got a standing ovation. The clapping didn't stop. Sumi was looking at Jong-suk. She was so proud. Jong-suk was just enjoying his moment. At the after party, the director rose his beer for the cheers. Everyone was gathered for the celebration. Jong-suk was with the actors. Yang-woo and others were at a separate table. Yang-woo looked at the celebrities and frowned. He said, it's hard to approach Lee Jong-suk now. Back in school, he just used to go to bookstore to read books. Yoon-ji remembered it too. Young-ji suddenly said, he may not be able to interact with you since he is on a tight schedule right now. But, over time, he will be back as your friend. Yang-woo couldn't trust those lines. He asked, will that really happen? Young-ji smiled and replied, her father also had a time when he was super busy. But, after retirement, he became the same person he was before. Just when she said that, Jong-suk came to their table. He was happy to see them. Yang-woo teased, you punk, you finally came. We were about to die of awkwardness among all these celebrities. Jong-suk laughed and apologized. Yoon-ji said his acting was really good. She cried watching the movie. Jong-suk was surprised. Young-ji laughed and said Yang-woo also cried at the scene where he died. Yang-woo was embarrassed and said, when did he do that? Jong-suk just smiled over it. Suddenly, a human figure came at the table. Yoon-ji didn't know who it was. Just when Jong-suk looked at the figure, it was Kaede. She was dressed in unusual cloths and had a mask on her neck. She was also carrying a katana on her back. She asked Jong-suk why didn't he answer her call. After a while, they were in the nearby alley. Jong-suk and Kaede were alone. Jong-suk asked with surprise, so you came. He added, he called her, but he didn't expect her to come to Korea. Kaede said she was sorry for missing the premiere. Suddenly, Jong-suk noticed a bloody bandage on her stomach. Jong-suk asked, is she hurt? Kaede replied calmly, she is fine. She already had it treated. Just when Jong-suk was about to ask for the reason, he saw a van blocking the way of the alley. Few masked men came out of the van. Jong-suk asked, who are those people? Kaede immediately replied, those are the mercenaries hired by Jin Yang-woo. She put her hand on the hilt of her katana and said, shall they take care of them first? She dashed at the group of mercenaries holding her katana. The mercenary pointed his gun at her, but she slipped down and kicked him on his legs, cutting his hand with a single slash. The leader ordered to shoot immediately. But Jong-suk was already in the air. The masked men fired their rounds on Jong-suk. But Jong-suk was already making his wind-style energy ball. He threw the concentrated wind energy ball with a tremendous speed. It caused a massive blast on the masked men. The ground shook by the force. As he landed, Kaede was ready with her bike. Jong-suk asked, did she say, they are with Jin Yang-woo? Kaede told him to jump on the bike. Hearing the loud noise, Sumi had came to check on Jong-suk. But what she saw were the injured masked men and a big hole in the ground. She saw Jong-suk leaving on a bike. She knew what must have happened. Kaede was speeding up her bike. Jong-suk asked, is Jin Yang-woo aiming for the experience book? Kaede replied, it looks like the guy who was the collector's secretary seems to have gone to Jin Yang-woo with information of the experience books. Suddenly, they saw a white van blocking their road on ahead. A man in yellow suit descended from the car. It was Jack Bauer. Both Jong-suk and Kaede recognized this person. Jack greeted in an American style. Long time no see, Jong-suk. Suddenly, he pulled his gun and pointed it on him. He said, this time, he will kill him and fulfill Mr. Jin's order. Jong-suk immediately told Kaede to duck. He conjured his wind energy ball again and shot it towards Jack. Jack was suddenly surprised by the attack. He jumped to avoid the attack, but the shot blasted on the van, sending him flying. He fell over the road. He had survived the explosion, but he was not safe. Kaede was already holding her katana on him. Jong-suk asked, where is Jin Yang-woo? Jack smirked and said, do you really think I'll tell you that? He added, there's no use of torturing or threatening him. But Jong-suk didn't mind him. He simply asked Kaede, can she do it? Kaede immediately replied, yes. She added, she won't even break a sweat to hypnotize him when he is in such a state of shock already. Her hand suddenly moving towards frightened Jack. The next day, at Dadok Construction Office, Jin Yang-woo was waiting for someone. He asked impatiently to the secretary of the collector, did Jack Bauer get in touch with him? The secretary replied, yes, he is on his way. The secretary got a call. He suddenly said, Jack Bauer is here. Mr. Jin told him to let them in. Jack Bauer came in with two masked men. They were now in presence of Jin Yang-woo. Looking at him, Jin Yang-woo asked, you didn't come empty-handed, did you? Suddenly, Jack Bauer pointed his gun at him. Jin Yang-woo and his new secretary were frightened and shocked by the sudden change of events. The secretary suddenly yelled, Bauer, you bastard, you betrayed us. But, at the same time, Jong-suk, who was disguised as one of the masked men, put his hand on Bauer and said, no, unlike you, this guy didn't betray you. Jin Yang-woo was surprised to see Jong-suk. Kaede had already abandoned her disguise. Jong-suk asked her, she told him that she can make everyone forget about all the memories regarding the experience book. Is that right? Kaede smiled and looked at their enemies. She said, they have gathered at the same place just to make her job easier. The two of them were scared. Jong-suk told her to start. Scared Jin cursed at them as he was not going to sit around and let them have it their way. The secretary was taking his weapon out, but before they could move, Jong Suk was already behind them. He made them immovable with a single tap. Jong Suk put his hand on Jin Yong-woo, who was trembling with fear. Jong Suk told him to stay calm. He won't be able to move or scream anyway. Jong Suk moved towards his ear and said in a threatening, cold voice, "You should have realized that someone who saved your life can also take it away." Jin Yong-woo was scared enough that he was sweating in an AC room. Jong Suk added, "He won't kill him today, so he should thank him for saving his life twice." Jin Yong-woo couldn't control his tears. He was crying in fear. Kaede was ready with her task. She held her hands for her hypnosis and said, "That's very good. No one is more susceptible to hypnosis than a person in fear." The surrounding turned into blur as two illusionary eyes appeared behind Kaede. That was her power of hypnosis. A loud scream echoed in the Daedok construction office. The news about the Red Tide premiere and the actors receiving standing ovation was trending over the internet. Jong Suk's acting was praised by many media reporters. The movie was already called a big hit. After few days, another news of Red Tide becoming the biggest box office hit was trending. It was said it revived the stagnant theater business. Many news articles about Red Tide becoming an international phenomenon, Lee Jong Suk being awarded the Best Actor award, were published. One news also said that, including the Best Actor award, Lee Jong Suk has also received 4 additional awards. As expected, Lee Jong Suk received the Best Actor award at the Oscars Academy Awards. After a few months, the news about world stars Lee Jong Suk and Jin Sumi getting married was also a prime headline. In the new house at the countryside, in the lawn, Jong Suk was writing his experience. Sumi came to the lawn and asked, "What are you writing now in the experience book?" Jong Suk smiled and said he is writing about the details of their wedding day and their honeymoon. Sumi was more excited to know how much experience points he got from it. Jong Suk suddenly closed the book and said, "It's a secret." Sumi smiled and looking at the book she said, "This book. They have been through a lot because of this book." Jong Suk agreed. Jong Suk said, "Honestly, if it weren't for this book, I wouldn't have been able to marry you." Sumi, who must have heard it multiple times, just smiled and said, "There you go again with your cheesy line." She suddenly asked, "What is he planning to get from the experience points he got this time?" Jong Suk looked at her with a naughty smile and said, "He doesn't know yet. Maybe he will see if it has any experience related to married life." Sumi laughed and said, "That is really a good thought." As the sun was setting down, they both fell in love again. Maybe it was the new beginning. But for us, it was the end of a beautiful and amazing journey. Thank you everyone for watching this 14-episode long manhwa series alongside me. It was an incredible adventure. Please do write your experience about the series in the comments section. I am sure you enjoyed the series too. As you know, I read all your comments. Do subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We will be back with a new amazing manhwa series and recommendations. So keep reading manhwas and webtoons. Join the fun.